Buongiorno amici. We're here live from Milan together with Bert filming me. We're here for the second Speedy Tuesday event this year, the international one, and we're looking forward to it. We have a very special guest, we have a super program. You will soon find the report on Fratello. Today we have I think we have a very nice program. A very special guest, Nicole Stott, NASA astronaut with 2 space shuttle missions and also board of the ISS. We also have the new gold Speedmaster Apollo 11 50th anniversary and the new steel version with a touch of gold. Mrs. Nicole Stott from NASA, and please come on the stage. I heard you were going to share some of your beautiful stories with our guests.
So I thought today I would share with you a little bit of my experience in space, some of the different aspects of that. Even though this looks like we are standing still, just hanging there, peacefully, quietly, standing there in space, I know that we're traveling at 17,500 miles an hour, which means we orbit the Earth every 90 minutes, which then means about every 45 minutes or so we get one of these really stunning sunrises or sunsets out the window. I think in all things we start out inspired in some way. You guys are all here today because of the inspiration of, hopefully because of the anniversary of the moon landing, but Omega's place in that, and the creativity that goes behind that, and the things that it's led you to, the friendships you have with the people in this room, the relationships, and the knowledge of these very fine pieces. In preparation for going to live in space, we do a lot of things. Most of it's based on working as a team, how do you learn to work as a crew together. The best place that I had the chance to do that, for sure, was getting to live underwater for 3 weeks as an aquanaut, and experiencing our planet from what we call inner space. And so lived for 3 weeks on this habitat called Aquarius that's about the size of a school bus. And it is absolutely the closest thing to living and working in space. You're in an extreme environment, something happens at 60 feet underwater, your body is so saturated with nitrogen that you can't safely swim to the surface to get out of there to solve your problem. You have to deal with it at 60 feet underwater, just like we have to do in space. And then one day you get to launch. I don't think anything prepares you for what this is going to feel like. As in the first 90 seconds of launch off the pad, there wasn't a whole lot that the crew could actively do but monitor the systems. The ground had all the control then. And I think from a human standpoint, that was a really good thing. Because in those first 90 seconds that go by so fast, almost like you can't remember them happening, your body responds in a way that you're smiling, like the biggest smile you ever could imagine. Your hand is reaching out to high five, your crewmate sitting next to you. There's a woohoo that comes out, like woohoo, because you don't want to be unprofessional and like really scream out woohoo. So it's kind of this. And then you get past that and move on to the rest of launch, which 2.5 minutes, those boosters separate, big flash, big bang, 8.5 minutes, the orange tank separates, and from 0 to 8.5 minutes, you've gone from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour, and you are floating in space. It is just incredible. Where we go and where I went both times was to this International Space Station. I would say masterpiece in space. The best example of living off the grid is right here. And it was built in cooperation by 15 different countries, who to this day, over 20 years later, are still working peacefully and successfully together as a unified crew of 6 on the station and as tens of thousands of people across the planet doing the same to make sure that it operates like it's supposed to. I could talk all day about this, but we'll move on. We go to space to do science. We're working there. Every day is a little bit different. Our day is very regimented. You are working by using this thing on your arm, this watch, and the schedule that's presented to you on the computer. They schedule us down to like 5-minute increments. A bulk of the work is the science that we're doing on station. The reason we do science on the space station is because we can take gravity out of the equation. And when you take gravity out of the equation, kind of interesting things happen, and you can learn stuff about things you thought you already knew a whole lot about, and you see it presented to you in a totally new way. All of the work that we're doing is somehow associated with managing our time and space. Every day is a mix of something a little bit different, but like I said before, we are regimented in a way that's like down to this 5-minute, this 5-minute chunk of time. And then this is my obligatory, I got to do a spacewalk picture, which to describe space in 2 words, it's awesome and surreal. Those 2 words perfectly fit it. This is I think, the most surrealist of anything you can do in space. One of the greatest things about being in space is the opportunity to appreciate Earth from space, to see the planet in a whole new way. This is one of my favorite pictures because it reminds me I actually got to do that. Find this little chain of islands that looks like somebody took a brush and painted a wave on the ocean. And this is a little chain of islands called Las Rocas on the northern coast of Venezuela. And that one picture was the inspiration for me to paint this watercolor that I did in space. I brought up a little watercolor kit with me, was able to paint while I was there. Doesn't look quite as beautiful as the wave through the window, but it was a lot of fun to do. I can tell you painting with watercolors in space is a little bit different than down here on Earth. And that art that I did in space has led me to bringing, after retiring from NASA, to bringing really the 2 things I love the most, besides my son, bringing space and art together. And doing that through my own artwork and trying to share the experience I had in space, but also working with kids around the world who are in pediatric cancer centers or some in refugee camps or in places where you hope that you can give them some thought of the future. And here's a picture of where we are today. I don't know if I could pick out in particular, but this is Milan from space, a recent photo of Milan from space. And I think, you look at Florida and you see all the blues and the turquoises, and every spot on the planet has its own kind of color code to it. And there's no better picture than that, I don't think, than the iconic image from the Apollo 8 mission 50 years ago in December, where for the first time with human eyes, shared with us through, the photos, was this picture of Earth, our planet, rising above the horizon of another planetary body. And that, I think, was the greatest reality check for humanity, is that we live on a planet, we're all Earthlings, and the only border that matters is that thin blue line of atmosphere that blankets us all. So if you don't remember anything else I said today, you'll remember those 3 things and you'll carry them with you from here on out and leave here as Earthlings. Thank you.
So now we continue with our panel discussion, a little Q&A, and we have some questions, and at the end we will ask you if you have some questions either for Nicole or for Gregory or even perhaps for me. Were you aware that there's a Speedmaster community or Speedy Tuesday community that is all about collecting Speedmasters, just one single watch?
I will admit I was not aware until that event that there is a Speedy Tuesday, and I understand we have you to thank you for that.
Well, not only me, I think mainly the guests that are all together making the Speedmaster and the Speedy Tuesday community very much alive so. But why actually do you need a watch in space? Because I guess you have computers to show you tasks, to show timing. What makes it that you really need a wristwatch?
Well, I think it's, you have the computers with the schedule, kind of the timeline for your day there. But there's something about, I think it's the same as down here on Earth as it is in space. There's this relationship with time that we have that you want there with you too. So just that basic nature of it, having the watch with you as your immediate reference for what time it is. And in space, time can be difficult. In that orbit around the Earth, with orbiting the Earth 16 times a day, and those sunrises and sunsets happening, you can't use day and night as your cycle or your reference for time. So, your stomach's telling you when you're hungry for lunch and when you're tired for going to bed at night. But that relationship to time throughout the day, it needs to be with you. And for me, there were key things. Like, I'm telling you the truth when I talk about setting an alarm to remind me to go back to work. And Omega has the best alarm on it. It's loud and solid, and when you needed to wake up in the morning, it was loud and solid. And for timing, we have loads of tasks that we time throughout the day too, that you can't just look at the computer for or rely on the ground calling you. You've got to have it right there with you. And I think it's kind of this personal relationship with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly 72 dB.
Why is it important that astronauts need to have precise time? And perhaps this is also a good moment to mention the failure of equipment in space with Apollo 13. There, the Speedmaster had a very specific role.
Yeah, sure. I think all of you know about the great story about the Apollo 13. Houston, we had a problem, and before returning safely on Earth, the crew need to do a correction, and they receive the time for burning the engine. And I don't think if you noticed that, we all know that it was 14 seconds, but the first time was 15 seconds. So Houston said 15 seconds, and then they correct. So please -1 second because of the heat of the burning engine. So the crew had to calculate to do the timekeeping with exactly 14 seconds. Actually, they did 13.8 seconds after the space report, and of course they used the chronograph.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, and
Thank you.
thank you. And perhaps you don't know, but I think part of the fun with Speedy Tuesday is that we take a wrist shot.
Yeah. All right. It's my man hand.
Perfect.
Hello again, it's a big pleasure for me to present you these two new products which are related to the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. So, to celebrate this 50th anniversary, we decided to redo the Golden Speedmaster, but with the technology of today and with the spirit of today. And here, a very nice posters which shows you all the special series we made for celebrating the 50th anniversary, and since 1969. And as you can see, there's more room, more space for another one. So I'm going to show you now the steel product with a touch of gold. So this is Buzz Aldrin stepping down the lamp. Very nice pictures, and we took this picture to animate the subdial at 9 o'clock. In the previous limited series, we played with a patch, and for us it was really important to talk about really the first step on the moon. And then the box is also really, really cool. As a stand, we developed a kind of lamp which represent the lamp descending on the moon surface. So thank you very much for your attention, and see you on the other side of the moon. Not the dark side this time, but you will have the opportunity to touch the products, shoot the product, and then to ask some questions. Thank you so much. Here the new Argent 321 caliber